Hey everybody, welcome to KSOL Media. We are going to be reviewing Aquaman today. With me today, I have Ian,
Hey people, what's going on?
and we are going to talk about this deep sea adventure. Wow.
You know,
All right, let's go. Go ahead. Let's do early. First take. Like, what was your expectation coming in?
oh man, Aquaman's kind of an open book for me. You know, he was one of my dad's favorite superheroes coming up. I was never, I didn't follow DC as much, so hey, open slate on this man. I wasn't coming into this glum, and I wasn't coming into this high ended, but I was just saying, man, come on, DC, come on. I want to root for you
Yes.
guys. I want to so much. So I was optimistic, and I say optimistic and not cautiously optimistic because I had a lot of hope for this one. I said I really hope they learned a lot from Wonder Woman, Batman versus Superman, the DCEU issues, all that. Let's see what they combine here.
I totally agree with you that. I was like, I wanted to come in. I had to learn. I had high expectations for Suicide Squad and got completely backhanded. Just like I was like, this is gonna be a great movie, and it's just awful. And then I had like not very great expectations for Wonder Woman, and I mean, honestly, I think
Yeah,
it's still to this day one of the best superhero films I've ever seen. And then, so I was like, okay, I want to see what vibe they're gonna go for. So at first I was thinking, okay, maybe it's a surfer Beach Boy vibe.
right.
Then you had like the trailers coming out with like the little kid, and like I'm like, okay, so it's an origin story. But then I was like, man, maybe this is gonna be more of that dark, gritty DC. And then I see some of the trailers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just hope this is not another ridiculous like
Yes,
Sharknado
yes,
wannabe. You
yes.
know, like that was my biggest fear. Was like, please don't make this movie a Sharknado.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I mean, what was your first thought coming out, walking out of there though?
My first thought, literally, as I walked out, finally another DC hero. Like, and I say hero in all caps because we've really been through this slog of grit, a downtrodden Superman, a Batman who's just wantonly just kill people left and
Yep.
right in BVS and things like that. It was a breath of fresh air because as I think as corny as some of that comes across, I'd argue this is the thing that we look for in hero films.
Mhm.
You look for the higher path. You look for trying to take the high road over things, and that hopefully even if it's a harder path to take, that those positive inclinations do override the more negative things or our worst tendencies and stuff like that. And I think you get that here, and it came from a source who was just totally rough hewn, someone who I thought was just a joke, thinking about how can this guy actually be like a king or a prince. I mean, he gives off none
Mhm.
of the vibe of the classic Aquaman at all, which it's grown on me, to be honest. He's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
such a an oaf and just like this kind of lumbering dude about things. But you know what? It works. So uh yeah, I said finally, here we go. This is I will put this DC hero next to Wonder Woman.
Really, you're gonna go that high? Okay. Wow.
Not
Uh,
that well I should make a distinction. Not quite the film, but as far as just what he stands for and whatnot and things like that.
okay.
So
Gotcha. That's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
Hmm. Okay. So I was not sure how to feel about this
right,
film because I mean, again, I'm a big fan of the gritty. I like that dark. I like that edgy. I
sure,
think that's why I was drawn to DC.
sure,
Um, just like it's that hard rush, and then I come out and it was very colorful, very, I mean, almost
yeah,
humorous at times. It's probably had the most humor out of any DC film we've seen in a while.
I agree.
um Huge sensory overload with the sounds, the lights,
Yep,
but it was corny at times or like kind of silly, but
yeah,
at the same time it was, for me, my thought process was it was that it for in my personal opinion it was an okay movie,
right.
but it was exactly what this franchise needed.
It was, and that's the exact breath of fresh air I refer to. I think the most positive thing coming out of this is what it does for which is likely the concluding chapter for what we're seeing in the some of the shared universe stuff that's been going
Yeah.
on, and it's a welcome close. So when
it
when I look at the overarching storyline for sure.
It's really sad to me though, because I mean, if in the perfect world they would have made Wonder Woman, they would have done Man of Steel,
Right.
then they would have did a movie like Aquaman, and then have done Batman v Superman, and then Justice League.
Right.
Because I mean, I mean, such a solid film as far as like having like a single hero and then to build towards something. And I think that kind of just goes. We've talked about this with DC,
Hmm.
that we feel like they rushed to get their Avengers movie out,
Hmm.
to compete with Marvel
Hmm.
way too soon. It's such a shame because I feel like you really could have builded something really amazing, and I think Aquaman would have been a nice foundation stone
It
for that. But instead, you almost had to like rescue everything that was wrong with everything you've done so far. So I think
absolutely.
that in some ways limited its potential.
Yeah, this is the thing that I think DC needed early on. I think
Mhm.
if we came out the gate swinging with some origin stories like this, basing characters like this, I think you would have had a different Justice League, and
Oh, absolutely.
and much more to that. Because and the good part here, there is some nod to continuity as well, but this film doesn't linger there. We do get some
Yes.
nods at Steppenwolf and what we just saw in Justice League and stuff like that, but this very much I think stays itself and really stays on track to tell its own story.
Now, as far as like continuing this series, and we kind of talked about it, especially we were kind of talking a little bit about it with the post-credit scene,
Right.
which I think is so funny that they decided to end up doing because, I mean, if you remember, like early when they were started making the DC movies, they were like, F Marvel, we don't need
Right.
have
Right.
post-credit scenes, and
Right.
now like all their movies have these post-credit scenes.
And now
Um,
they fell into those. I want to cut in real quick about one thing. Hey, just a heads up, we this is spoiler territory in case anybody's wondering. I know we have a short synopsis here. You probably jumped here to hear our full thoughts, but if you don't want to hear the after credits or whatever else, you have been warned. So fire on.
Perfect. What does this do for the future of DC? I mean, I know that there's talking about like we're probably not going to do a DC universe anymore, but is that the right answer? Because I mean, you set up Darkseid super heavy in Batman v Superman, which I would have loved to see,
Yeah.
and then they're setting up, with Doctor Shin and Black Manta.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, he's not actually dead, which typical bad guys never really die, but
Not the good
but
one.
where does that lead, and like how do you move forward with that franchise?
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's tough. I want to say because a lot of the territory with villains is still uncharted. I mean,
Mm,
there's a couple directions that you could go. You could go start going back classic, and we could dig into some, post Golden Age stuff. We could start talking about the Legion of Doom and old school things like that. If you really want to go that direction, sort of dissolve some of what we have at DCU, or you can go ahead. You can go the more cosmic route. Darkseid is a linchpin of so many of those
yeah,
plots. He's been, I think, an amazing villain over the years, not just for the Justice League, but of course primarily for Superman. So that's tough, man. But the blessing in this, what I see as a positive is whatever happens with DC going forward, they got the villains in their back pocket, and
yes,
maybe that is where we base. Maybe that is how we start this. You know, so
that's not a bad idea, and I think that is one thing that DC has always done better, or for the majority done better than Marvel, and that's have interesting villains,
mm,
or just and that's not a knock on Marvel. It's just in Marvel movies we haven't. I don't think they really explored the full potential of villains until
mm,
they got Thanos.
mm,
And I mean, Thanos I think is really the best Marvel villain um, that we've had in a while. But you have the classics. You have Joker. You have guys like Darkseid. You have Lex Luthor. These pop culture
right,
phenomenons at this point. I mean, they botched Lex Luthor, I would argue.
right,
And I would say that the newest version, Jared Leto's Joker, was awful.
right,
But Orm, I think he's one of the best DC villains we've had in quite a while. Because I mean, Wonder Woman didn't really have a villain. Like she
right.
did, but it was more like she was her own villain kind of way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and I mean, in Ares, you could pull that out of open a mythology book. There you go. So,
yeah,
right,
exactly. No,
yeah,
so I mean, I thought Orm was a very solid
okay.
DC villain.
Well,
In personal opinion,
yeah, okay, cool. Well, hey, point counterpoint in that. I think you had a really good mention about DC villains compared to Marvel villains. Do you think
yes,
that the DC villains remain so prolific because those are the ones that have really become iconic? Like Joker, just what that name invokes alone when you're talking about comics for
yes,
Batman. It's
okay.
crazy. It's crazy. And I agree, Joker carries more weight than say Scorpion or say
Mhm.
Shocker or something. I know I'm going down the bit on the rung on
Yeah, yeah.
Spider-Man villains. But I wonder, is that just due to the association we make with them, or can we attribute all of that to their surely the strength of the writing?
I would argue it's both.
Hmm.
I think Marvel has always taken a stance of lightheartedness,
Yep.
and DC has always taken the stance of we're going to be very dark.
Mm,
And so that's why, and we as humans, we like the darker side
mm,
because we all have a little bit in that in us. And I think he's embraced that, whereas Marvel has always tried to stay more family friendly. You especially see that in their movie franchise,
gotcha.
whereas we've always been more edgy with DC. And I think maybe that might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Um, or maybe it's just the polarizing of the character himself.
Sure.
Like I don't know. I think we're fascinated with that dark side, and that's why we
All right.
like guys like Joker that are chaotic and just evil. But
Well, I admit I'm
whereas
veering
I mean,
us. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
I'm veering us off course a little bit. But the reason I mentioned that is I'm going to give you some really dark Marvel stories sometime and show you what's hiding under the bed because there's some.
Wonderful. Yes, I would love to.
I'm telling you. I
Willing
think
to be wrong.
yeah. I think so far what we get with Marvel, there's a lot we haven't seen and that we haven't delved into. I've always felt the two kind of balanced each other roughly as far as where they go
Yes.
in plot lines and things like that. But no, I was just curious. I just wanted your take on that. Good mention.
And
Um,
I think it's not. I don't think it's fair necessarily to bring up Marvel when we're trying to review a DC movie, but at the same time,
sure.
they've almost these movie franchises have made themselves do that. Like Marvel was the movie franchise, and DC was kind of running TV with the CW and whatnot.
Right.
But I mean, from the instant that the Suicide Squad was coming out and Ayer said "fuck Marvel," that's when we knew, okay, now we can bring these two in the same conversations.
Right. Right.
And and then obviously they try to follow the same pattern with Justice League and Batman. You're clearly trying to make your own Avengers.
Right.
So I mean, I really hate to like be that guy that's like, oh well, Marvel does it this way. But I feel like it's important to also bring them up in a conversation like this, especially when you're trying to talk about the future of DC's movie franchise.
Sure.
But
Sure.
that's my justification for bringing that up.
I dig. No, I dig it. I think that segues us right into just some of the linchpins for the villains and what we're talking about in this film too. That was Patrick Wilson as Ocean Master. And
Yes.
one thing I liked, I think, about him was he was sort of the axis for the palace intrigue.
Hmm.
I felt he wasn't necessarily as much on the raw villainy for the sake of villainy, but by a whole string of misguided actions based from a flawed foundation is sort of where he pushed things. He's pushing for this massive war. He's trying to unite Atlantis itself in a really destructive way. And meanwhile, you have our other villain, Black Manta, who really has felt his life's been shattered. The thing that he loved most, his father's been taken away from him by Aquaman, and the two of them kind of end up converging in this alliance
Hmm.
that sort of just happens to work. It just and I thought the delivery of that wasn't that didn't felt disjointed or broken at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good meeting of paths, and then they kind of split back off. We went more into Ocean Master for the end, but I thought the two of them worked well for this, and that's tricky to do. Tricky to do, even in a movie of this length, when you're talking about 2.5 hours. It's easy to just give one villain hardly any screen time and then put the
Yeah.
rest of the focus elsewhere. But I thought it worked.
No, I totally agree with you. And you kind of mentioned this. When you have these many characters, as this movie did, it can be
Yeah,
very easy to get caught up and be like, wait, why should I care about that guy? Where are you from? But like you said, they think they did a good job of balancing that screen time between the two. And now we're gonna potentially, hopefully, see something more with Black Manta
yeah,
in the futures. Because I thought he was a fun villain, honestly. And he was kind of a little bit of an outlier, and I like the idea of having more technological
sure,
innovations versus just I'm a straight up superhero.
sure,
But
So
um,
yeah, hey,
but you mentioned something about. Go ahead.
no. I was going to ask you to help me out with Black Man. I was going to go into the part of the after credit scene, but go ahead
Okay,
and
go.
segue
Let's
first.
go there.
Yeah,
Let's go there.
yeah. I didn't get to see this. I was trying to make sure I got in that we got here to sit down and actually talk about this and get a
Yes.
review in, what happens in the after credits?
So in the actual scene, that the Doctor Shin,
Hmm.
he like rescues Black Manta, and he's like getting all like crazy about his technology,
Mm.
and that's kind of it looks like there might eventually be an alliance
Hmm.
between Doctor Shin and this Black Manta. Um, and so, which I think would be really cool because you have Manta who obviously knows Atlantis and he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder. And then you have
Sure.
the typical greedy scientist that, who now is going to have all this tech. So, I mean, in Aquaman 2, maybe we'll see another duo of villains or something.
Hey, good stuff. Good stuff.
That was my take. So,
Okay.
Chris, if you're watching this right now and you're listening later, feel free to make your own podcast and correct us.
Oh man, I don't worry.
But going off that runtimes, we were kind of talking about this before the show. Movie runtimes right now, and Aquaman is a mammoth, is a leviathan of a time.
Oh yeah.
2.5 hours. Um, and we were talking about how people's concentration has diminished immensely to the point. I mean, I think last time I was reading an article about it. It said like a goldfish has a longer attention span than humans do, which is funny because it's Aquaman. So,
Oh,
but
love it.
um, but we have more and more huge, like long movies, especially with the DC universe. I think every single one of
Right.
their movies has been just mammoth. And this is actually the third longest film I found out in the entire DC franchise.
Wow.
Second only to Justice League and Batman v Superman. Um, so, so why is
Cool.
that? And I made my hypothesis is that we as audiences have gotten more cynical and we need more explanation
Right.
for everything, and we
Right.
don't like one-dimensional characters anymore.
Mm.
Counterpoint.
We look. I think we look for a lot of not just micro explanations for things, but macro, and for all of that to tie in together and sort of give us this whole collective piece. Movies I think have moved, especially superhero movies, have moved just beyond tell this one slice of the story. I think there's elements we like. There's the origin portion. There's the sort of coming about portion, fully stepping into that hero role. There's the well, where are all the winks and nods to comics? Is that there? Oh, that's a reference to this. That's a reference to, and it's tough because if you do that too much, like Justice League, I think you lose people. But
Yes.
when you have just the right amount of balance, it can work. And then the trick is, the cast to deliver that. Like, you talk about how time is distributed. I mean, I mean, look at who we got in this list. You had Dolph Lundgren, freaking Ivan Drago, appearing here as like,
Yeah.
King Nereus. You got William Dafoe. That was awesome to see him. Nicole Kidman. Like,
That was so weird seeing Defoe play a good guy.
it
I'm not gonna
was,
lie.
it was. I was just waiting. I was waiting for him to go crazy, right? Or something.
Yes, yeah. I was like, "Where's the Green Goblin? Show us the Green Goblin."
And Jason Momoa, hey, the list goes on and on with that. So, but I think this man, not just this movie, but what we're seeing in hero films today, we're able to balance those types of cast to sort of wrap up this holistic story to try to deliver, and it's a really thin line. It's a tight line to walk that always has me really tense because any of those zones that you hover in too much can really drag out a film
Yes,
too far.
and that's how you get, marathons and
Yeah.
of just like, oh, okay, when's this movie over? But
Right.
no.
Oh,
You mentioned the cast. Let's talk about Amber Heard. She played
yeah.
Mara.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there's gonna be comparisons to her character and Wonder Woman.
Sure.
What was your take on her character?
Okay, first, I had zero history with her comic wise. I, there's some DC folks out there. If you followed Aquaman, and there's some precedent, please tell me because I'm lost. I'd like to have a point of reference there, but I didn't. As far as her take and what she was, willing to do, this was someone who was all out for her kingdom. She was willing, if it took it, to break tradition, to crack through those things, to try to bring balance, to try to bring peace, or what she saw was the right thing to do. I think so. Definitely someone who wasn't bound by laws and whatnot. I wouldn't go as far as to compare her necessarily to Wonder Woman per se, because she really acquiesced a lot. But what she wanted to do was to get Atlantis in good standing. If that took getting a true king to wield the trident, hey, so be it. She didn't have to have that limelight. She wasn't interested in being a superhero necessarily. Even when she kind of took a liking to the surface world, she wasn't into, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to defend all
Mhm.
that is good. That's not what she was about. She was really more about her people and giving Atlantis a strong base. So uh,
No, I agree with you.
for that
I thought
she worked. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought she was a great, like, strong female lead, and but she wasn't like over the top.
No.
Where it's just like really like I don't, I mean, I'm not trying to bash movies here, but Ocean 11 I thought was ridiculous. And I thought that was a good example of a bad strong female lead, and this was I think Aquaman did a great job of having a good
Yeah.
strong female lead. And if you disagree, please comment below why we're wrong. Like, we love
Sure.
to learn why we're wrong, and we're just a couple dudes talking. What do we know? So like, please let us know. Um, Something I didn't even know. I didn't know this, but this film was not supposed to happen multiple times.
Wow.
And it actually got rewritten a couple times, and then they eventually told two screenwriters, each of you write a script, and we'll decide which one we want to go with.
Wow.
And then it still got rewritten a couple times by Wan, James Wan, who directed The Conjuring. Once I figured out that he was a Fast and Seven
Right.
movie director, a lot more stuff made sense. Honestly,
Right.
the big swoopy shots, the color,
Right. Right.
the pacing. Even I was like, oh, this makes sense. Fast and Furious 7.
Yeah.
But it's got $300 million in the bank right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Critics on Rotten Tomatoes are giving it a 67,
hmm
so not passing. But the fans have loved this movie.
Yeah. They're eating it
And
up.
it's sitting at an 87. And do you think it's? And I kind of think, kind of bring everything full circle. Does this have to do with being so different than the typical DC films we've seen?
Again, I personally think it comes down more the hero complex. This steps out of that grit a bit and more into I think some classic DC forms, some classic DC colors. Even down to the nod of the original Aquaman outfit. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't.
That
You
was
don't.
awesome.
Yeah, it was well done. I think a lot of people were, oh man, how would that look in big screen? That looks so cheesy. But no, it was really well
It
done.
was it was really cool.
So,
I think we're gonna see a lot of outfits for next Halloween.
oh,
Um,
oh
for
yeah.
sure.
So just looking at this in its totality, it's like you said, it's a little bit dizzying, a little bit dazzling with the scope of the whole world we have here. But I think they really take pains to show us, Atlantis and the rest of it. They released the Kraken for goodness sake. But
Yeah.
you have, I think, everything from an origin story to a coming about to rulership to the development of a hero story, and that's really in full. I mean, that's what I expect from a superhero movie, to be honest. So
Yeah. There obviously was a little bit of political
there
messages.
was a message, definitely.
What was your take? Some people argued the political message, and like in my mind, it was, obviously recycle, save the planet,
Yeah.
and compromise in politics. Those are the two big message I took. Some
Right.
people were kind of bashing Aquaman for not taking a harder stance, especially when it came to the save the turtles
Oh,
stance. Did you think? Do you think any more would have been too much, especially for a superhero movie
I
like this?
absolutely think more would have been too much. And in fact, by the second time we sort of had that push, I was literally saying in the back of my mind, okay, we get it. Like, at least I get it already. I
Yeah.
understand that. I don't think it's the job of not just superhero films, but just movies like this to be responsible for pushing a message in a platform. We're in an age that happens a lot. I think sometimes movies get hijacked and turned into a platform. That's grounds I think that we have to be really, really wary of. So that didn't happen here. I thought any more would have been over the scale. I was already maxed out on that, frankly. So
Gotcha. That's good. And I agree with you. I thought this movie it knew exactly what it was. It was fun.
right,
It was humorous at time. It didn't try and force spin-offs like we had seen in some of the earlier DC stuff. It had a message and like a good point. I was like, I'm able to like justify my
definitely.
2.5 hours watching this. But it wasn't like I didn't walk out going, man, like that was dumb. Like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is what I was afraid I would do. I was afraid I was going to walk out and, obviously every movie has flaws, and especially when you make movies of this size, some
Sure.
of the pacing was a little off, especially when they were island hopping, looking for tridents, and
Yeah,
I mean,
that was the slowest section for me too.
yeah, and the dialogue was a little dumb at times, but um, like I said, and I said this in the beginning of the show, is that honestly, even if it was just an okay movie, this was and I think it's a little more than okay.
Yeah.
But even if it was just an okay movie, it was great for the DC movie franchise, and it makes me a lot more hopeful for future DC films. It makes me feel a lot better about Shazam, honestly, which is coming out. Especially if Shazam goes more this route, because I saw the trailer and I was like, man, this movie looks stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I know Chris is amped for that one when it comes out. So hey, it could surprise us. But hey, man, hey, looks like we're kind of rounding the bend here, and we're kind of dancing around it. Let's say out of tridents, number of tridents, and you could be half a trident, it could be a broken trident. I don't mind. How many tridents out of 10 would you rate Aquaman?
Ooh, I think overall I'm gonna go 7.5 tridents.
Wow.
There's one I don't feel comfortable enough to give it a full 8.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think 7's too low.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go 7.5. I think, like I said, like it may have not been the greatest film, but I think it was definitely better than what's out in the theaters right now, and it's great for the DC franchise. So for the greater good, it's gonna get a 7.
All right, right on, man. I happen to be in the exact same wheelhouse. 7.5 tridents. One of those tridents is broken. Obviously, I think it doesn't quite hit that 8 threshold. But again, for me, it was enough of seeing that extra push, saying, yeah, that's Aquaman. I'll take that, rough hewn and all. So good deal.
Makes me very excited for more, honestly. So definitely, if you have not checked this movie out in the theaters, I think would you say spend your $10, spend your $12?
If you're looking for your holiday hero film and you haven't gotten enough especially after getting out of seeing Spider-Man, or so, yeah, go on out, check it out. And here's the other reason I think this should be looked at. This is one of the parting nods we have to the DCEU. So if you've seen these, if you've been following Superman and Batman and other stuff, go ahead. I definitely go ahead and check this one out. I think it's worth it.
And I think it's definitely going to be one of those that to understand, like, to get the whole grand scheme of the shooting, you're going to want to see it.
Exactly.
Just with the water shot. I'm a beach guy, so obviously I was going to watch this even if it sucked. But but yeah, just to get the grandeur of the film would be best appreciated on a big screen.
Right on.
Personal.
Okay. Well,
awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. I'll let Ian tell you what to do.
yeah. No, Isaac, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, for being on. Hey, people, look, if you've enjoyed this, hey, every comment, every like, share, dislike, hey, whatever you got to say, it helps us out a ton here. So please, we'd love to hear from you. Also, we have plenty of other reviews in this channel, not just the superhero movies, but other stuff that's come out during this holiday season and beforehand. Hey, also, if you want more notifications on what's going to be coming out, you want to be on the tip of the spear, hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you on board for our future content. But hey, until next time, hope you guys enjoyed this review. Looking forward to hearing from you. Happy holidays. We'll catch you again soon.
Peace out, guys.
Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, there anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but it'd be great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksongmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, dig up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.